Hello everybody, thank you for joining us at this Your Overseas Home webinar. My name is Hannah Armstrong and I will be hosting this session. Today we're going to be discussing the golden 3 experts that you need to help you safely and securely buy a property in France. It's great to have you all with us today, whether you're watching us live this afternoon or you're catching up with us on demand. We're delighted to be able to help you realise that dream of owning your home in the beautiful France. Now, today's session will be about 40 to 45 minutes long, and for those of you listening in live, there's loads of opportunity to put your question to our panel of speakers today. If you do have anything that you wish to ask, just pop that into the questions section, which you'll find at the bottom or on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will get as many of those queries answered. If you do want a reminder of anything that we discussed today, or you want to share this session with family or friends, we will make a replay available on the Your Overseas Home website, and we'll send you details of that via email, so you can catch up or pass that on to anybody that you wish. Now, I'm delighted to be joined today by, well, it will be golden 3, golden 2 at the moment, but we will have a third speaker joining us in a bit. So first up, you will hear from Paul Harris of Smart Currency Exchange, who are also the sponsors of this session today. Now, Paul's been working within foreign exchange and supporting buyers with their currency needs for 10 years now. He and his team are based here in the UK, but they support clients all over the world with any financial transactions and currency needs. Next up, we will hear from Eric Garnier from Beauvillage. Now, Eric was born and grew up in southwest France, so knows the area incredibly well. He's got a particular passion for stone properties and property renovation, which pushed him to start working in the world of real estate. And he really loves helping customers, so he's very well placed to support you. And lastly, joining us just before the end, we'll be hearing from Tracy of LBS Services, who can talk to you all about the legalities and in particular your visa and residency application. So Tracy will swoop in at the end and ask some questions before we finish today. Enough from me. You've heard enough of my voice for now. So first up, I would love to introduce Paul from Smart Currency Exchange. And Paul, would you start by giving us a bit of an intro into the business and how you can help your customers?
Absolutely. Thanks, Hannah, and good evening, everyone. So yeah, a bit of background about Smart Currency. So as Hannah said, we're a foreign exchange specialist. And our main aim is to obviously assist you with the currency transaction, move the money from well, if you're based in the UK, from the UK into France, and do it in the most cost-effective way as possible. So over the last 16, 17 years that we've been running, we've helped over 40,000 people in the exact same situation as yourself to really take some of the stress out of the purchase and make it, as I said, as cost-effective as possible as far as the exchange rates go. So we provide a top level service, something we pride ourselves on as well. So as I said, we've helped a large number of clients in the same situation, which has given us a huge amount of experience with clients in the same situation. So we can also be a little bit of a one-stop shop for any sort of smaller questions that we can answer on the property on the buying journey, and anything we can't answer, obviously we've got the partners that are speaking with us tonight that we can obviously refer you on to give you that extra assistance.
Thanks, Paul. That's brilliant and really helpful to know that you can sort of answer questions just beyond the kind of currency side of things, which is great. Thank you. In terms of, though, the currency, and particularly focusing on that for now, what sort of transfer products and options and solutions and things do you have for the customers? How can they work with you?
So we've got with 2 main products that we offer are spot and forward contracts. So we've done some research into the transactions. You may already know what they are, but I'll explain in a little bit more detail anyway now. So a spot contract is essentially, as the name goes, we book an exchange rate today on the spot. You transfer the money to us straight, within a couple of working days, and we get the funds straight out for you. So if it's going to France, the money will be in there the same or next working day into the account that you've selected. It's a great tool that we have. Obviously, incredibly quick payment process, and again, we can get things over quickly. So if you've got small deposits to pay, we can make that happen very quickly for you. Our most popular product, however, is a forward contract, and that's very popular, obviously, in the property purchase journey. So, for example, I'll give you sort of a real life example. Base it on someone based in the UK to start with. Say, for example, you're on a viewing trip, or you found a property that you've fallen in love with. You agree a price, and you sign on the dotted line. So you've agreed your price in euros. You know how much the property is going to cost you in euros. And one thing you don't know at that point is exactly how much that's going to cost you in pounds sterling. So you'll fix your exchange rate. Well, you fix your price in euros, but the price in pounds sterling will be going up and down, and that will be based on the exchange rate at the time. The exchange rate's changing all the time, and so that price will always be fluctuating until you fix or until you book a transfer or actually transfer the funds over. So a forward contract is a brilliant tool. So typically we would say, I mean, it can be different in all circumstances, but you're looking maybe around a 3-month process from when you agree to when you complete. Obviously, you've got a lot of paperwork in the meantime to go through. So a forward contract allows you to understand what your price is in euros. So that's been agreed, but then we can actually fix today's exchange rate for you if that's something you're happy with. So you know exactly how much it's costing you in euros and how much it's costing you in pounds sterling as well. You don't have to pay for that contract up front. So we only take it up to between 5 or 10% deposit, depending on obviously the timescales and the amounts that you're looking to transfer. But you only have to pay for the full contract on completion. So it gives you complete peace of mind that you know what your euro budget, your euro price is, and how much it's actually costing you in pounds sterling, because it's not costing you that euro amount, it's costing you obviously the amount of money that you've got in your bank account at the moment. So that's where we can be a real, that's where that contract can be a real asset to you, and it really does give you peace of mind that is one part of the process that is secure. So you've got all your prices sorted, you've got all your costings sorted for the actual purchase. Two other options that we do have are orders. So we have an order to buy and an order to call. Both very similar, but with slight differences. So again, exactly the same scenario. So you agree today, agree your price in euros, so you know that's what it is. But the exchange rate on the cost that we're able to offer based on the exchange rate in pounds isn't quite where you want it to be. You want a better exchange rate, so we can have that conversation with you. And we can look at targeting exchange rates. So at the moment we're around the 120 mark. We've actually had some great movement over the last few days. So we're actually in a good spot now. But say, for example, you wanted a little bit higher, you wanted to be around 121, 122. We can target that for sure. We can put markers in and try and achieve those exchange rates for you. There's nothing special that we'll do. It's going to be completely based on the actual exchange markets. We can't influence those. And it's only going to be available if the market dictates it. So it's not a guarantee. But the difference between the two, in order to buy, is we would be holding the funds for you. As soon as the rate is achieved, it would trigger the contract. We book the contract in for you and transfer it where it needs to go. In order to call, is as it says in the name, we would see that exchange rate is achieved. We'll give you a call and explain, right, now is the time where you're able to achieve that exchange rate. Did you want to proceed? And then we can look at, again, a spot contract, forward contract as well. But as I mentioned a second ago, the most important thing to really be mindful of is that an order doesn't guarantee you're going to get that high rate. It's always going to be what the market dictates. So as I said, we've had a good couple of weeks. We're up to around the 120 mark. There's not anything massive on the horizon, but who knows what's happening at the moment. Lots of things can happen from day to day. That rate could drop slightly. So, it does have an added risk. If you're aiming for a higher rate, you may actually end up with a slightly lower one at the front. So it's something that we'll have a really in-depth conversation with you about what's best for you and what you're most comfortable with, and book whatever you feel is best.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Paul. That's a really helpful overview. And as Paul mentioned, the earlier that you're able to speak to him and the team, the better they're going to be able to advise you on which of those solutions is going to be the best for you and for your purchase. Great questions come in from Richard today. He just wanted to understand what the fees are that Smart charge for those different products that you just talked about there.
Yeah, great question. We don't actually charge any fees. So all of the contracts don't come with an additional cost on top of them. So we don't book a contract and say, okay, for this exchange rate, it's going to cost you X amount of money. We obviously do make money, and we're very transparent with how we do that. So we make our money in the actual exchange rate itself. So the exchange rate that you see online or wherever you're getting your information from is where the banks are trading with each other. It's called the market price or the interbank price, as many people call it different things. We buy very close to that from the bank. And the rate we offer is always slightly below it. So we make the money between those two exchange rates. It doesn't cost you any extra to do it that way. It's not a hidden fee. Like I said, we're always going to be very transparent with the exchange rate that you're going to get. And anything that we say as far as the exchange rate that you're getting is set in stone. That doesn't change, and what we say you're going to get transferred will get transferred at the cost we've agreed. So there's no additional fees at all associated with transfer.
That's brilliant. That's great to know. Thank you so much. Now, you obviously talked about the forward contracts there, and I know they're a particularly popular product that you offer. How early can a person lock in a rate and book that forward contract with you?
Well, we can book a forward contract for the larger sums up to 12 months. We would normally say we can go to 24 months if needed. But one bit of advice I would probably normally give is I would only really enter a contract into a forward contract if you know you're 100% going to go through with it, or if you've got a property in mind. Obviously, it's a legally binding contract when you book it with us. So if you've got a property in mind, or you're dead set that you're definitely going to be buying one, then absolutely we can book that for you. But if it is just to secure some funds, then yeah, absolutely we can do that. But obviously, I would always give the advice to have an actual tangible property in mind beforehand. But we can book anything for up to 12 months. Typically, is where we would go on a property purchase.
Great, that's helpful. Thank you, Paul. And what happens if they have booked that forward contract, they've paid you that deposit, but unfortunately the purchase falls through for whatever reason, or unforeseen circumstances, and they have to pull out? What happens to the deposit in that instance?
Yeah, I mean, it happens from time to time. So if you've booked a forward contract and we've got that deposit, if you need to completely cancel it, so your plan's 100% cancelled, not going to be buying anymore, just want to scrap the plans completely, then we can cancel in full. The reason we take the deposit is essentially to protect that contract if it is cancelled. So if there are any potential losses on the contract, then that would come out of the deposit. Now, a loss would occur. It's basically the way that forward contract works is that we buy all the currency up front. So that's how we can guarantee the exchange rate. So we're holding those euros for you, ready for your completion date and ready for you to complete the transaction. If we have to cancel, we then have to sell those euros back to the market. We'd always let you know what that's going to be. If there are potentially going to be some losses, we'd always have that discussion with you. If there are going to be losses, we can potentially extend the contract for you to hold on to it so you're not getting the losses. But again, it's something that an account manager will take you through and make sure that if there are going to be losses, we keep them as low as possible and try not to impact you at all.
That's great. Thanks, Paul. Now, we know that a lot of the customers that are listening in today are UK based, but we're delighted that we've got quite an international audience and quite a lot of customers from the US with us today. So thanks for joining us. Can you deal with customers in other currencies? It's not just sterling to euro. Are there other currencies that you can deal with as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Any major currency, so anything really with a dollar is typically fine. Euros, obviously fine. We do deal with all currencies across Europe. There are very few currencies that we don't support. But before you get through the whole registration process, you'd speak to a member of my team. They'd get an understanding of what currencies you have. If it's in the unlikely event and a currency that we can't support, we'd let you know very early, so you're not going through the whole process and finding out at the end. But yeah, typically we don't really have this problem. We can cover pretty much every currency.
That's great. That's really helpful, and I hope that answers the questions for the customers. Now, in terms of where you send the money in France for this purchase, or any other countries, if customers are looking elsewhere in the future, do you have to send it to a bank account in that person's name in that country, or can you send it to their solicitors or to the estate agent or something like that?
We can send it to wherever it needs to go. So with property purchases, the money will often go to notaires or solicitors. That's very common. It doesn't have to go to a bank account of yours in France. So we're not relying on you having the bank account in France for us to be able to send from your UK account to your French account. We can send to a third party. That's absolutely fine. You just need to let us know who and where it needs to go to.
That's great. Thank you. And last question, Paul, which I know is a common one that you do often get asked. Customers are saying, why would they work with Smart when perhaps, they could do it through their bank and transfer to their bank account that they've set up in France from, directly from their UK account. What would your advice be to customers who are maybe thinking about using their bank rather than using Smart?
Don't do it. is in short. There's a few reasons for it. Most importantly, the exchange rate is going to be better with us. It's going to be more cost effective. We will make the process cheaper for you. But I think actually to add a real significant layer onto it is if you could walk into your bank, speak to a cashier or speak to a personal account manager about the transaction. They may not actually really have any knowledge of the currency market. So they will be typing into a computer how much you want to transfer. The computer will give them an exchange rate, and that's the support you're going to get. By speaking to us, you're actually going to get someone that understands the markets and can talk you through the process. Is it a good time to do it? Is this product the right product for you? And ultimately, as I mentioned, products, the bank will offer a spot contract for you. So it'll only be book a rate today, transfer today. We can offer you that flexibility with forward contracts and orders as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul. That's really, really helpful. There's lots of questions that have been coming in from the audience today. So for those customers who we've not been able to get round to your query, we will share Paul's details along with all of the panelists from today's session, and we'll send those over to you via email so you can get your specific queries answered there, because I know there is a lot we could cover on this topic. So thank you so much for your insight there, Paul. But I'd love to move on to the second of our trusted Golden 3 partners, and we have Eric Garnier from Beau Village here with us today. So welcome, Eric. Thank you so much for joining us. It'd be great if you could start and give us a little bit of background into Beau Village, how you work with your customers and how you'd be able to support today's viewers.
Hi, good evening. I hope you can hear me well, because bandwidth here in Southwest France is sometimes a bit tricky.
We can hear you and we can see you, so we're all good.
Perfect, fantastic. So yes, I work for Beau Village Immobilier. We're based in Southwest France, and we span from the Charente all the way down to the Tarn. We have over 15 agencies in the area, and we work both with international clients from the UK, from America, Australia, Holland, Belgium, all over the world really, but also a lot with French clients. COVID has meant that we have more and more French buyers to this part of the world. So really, our focus is not just on international clients. We also work with local clients, and our real asset is the fact that we have a local team on the ground that has all the local knowledge. Some of the more international real estate agency will be focused around the main cities, the main hubs, but we're really on the ground, which makes it a huge advantage for the clients.
Thank you, Eric. That's a brilliant intro. I'd love to understand, you mentioned there obviously French buyers are now kind of looking to relocate to Southwest France, to the area that you're based in. What is the market like, given post-COVID, given Brexit, or all of those factors? What's sort of happening to the property market where you're based at the moment?
Well, the market's very unusual. If an estate agent could tell you that they can read the market or what's going to come of the market in the next few months, they'd most likely be lying to you. The truth is, COVID has had not only a negative impact on the business, we have had a lot of sales go through, in particular in the phases where things have been a little more open. In terms of Brexit, yes, it's true. We had less British clients, although there were still a lot of British clients interested. It was more the frustration for them of knowing how they would get over, what would happen once they got over. I think the truth is, a lot of British clients who are really keen to get out of the UK or to buy a secondary home in France are just convinced that there will be a solution, and if they want to spend more time in France, there will be a way to do so. So really, we are seeing a lot of British buyers come over at the moment.
That's great. That's good to know. In terms of that, and with that sort of COVID issue, and the difficulties with travel still, and perhaps, rightly, people are hesitant to travel, with the COVID risk and things like that. Can you support customers to sort of start that process, start the ball rolling, start looking at properties and things like that, if they're still here at home in the UK or wherever home is for them? Can you sort of start helping, or do they really need to be on the ground in France?
Yes, I mean, definitely. I mean, COVID has meant that real estate agents have had to develop virtual viewings. It's something we do a lot of. And obviously for clients in the UK or anywhere else, it's very difficult to get an accurate idea of what a property is like based on a few photos. So we believe we use several systems, including the 360 tours, which enable you to virtually walk through the property. We also do videos, and we're happy to do a walkthrough with clients. And this means that they will be able to prepare their trip over in a much more effective way. They'll be able to discard any properties that don't match their criteria, and so there won't be any time wasting once they do get over, because that's the frustrating thing, is if they spend months and months planning a trip and then they come over and they realize that half the properties they've booked in to see don't match their criteria, then it's a big waste of time for them, but also for us. So it's important that we try and match properties to what the client is searching, and virtual viewings is one good solution for that.
That's great. Thank you, Eric. I'm really sorry. I seem to have lost my picture, but I'm hoping that you can still hear me, which is the most important part. You obviously offer this really comprehensive service for buyers, helping them understand their needs. And as you said there, you really want to make sure the properties that you're showing them meet their requirements and things like that. Do your buyers pay you for that service, or is it more like the traditional model we're used to here in the UK, where Beauvillage earn their money effectively from the sales that they make and from the vendors?
Okay, so that really depends. We have two types of mandates. We have what we call a vendor mandate, which means effectively that the vendor will pay the fees to Beauvillage, or we have a buyer mandate, and in that case, it is the buyer that pays the fees. However, it really doesn't make a difference at the end of the day, because no matter what, our fees are reflected in the sale price. So whoever pays, the price really is not affected.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks for clearing that up. So I wanted to ask about sort of the time scale of the buying process. So I guess it's very difficult to say how long it will take a customer to find the property that they want, but typically how many viewings would a customer need, and how many viewings would they have before they generally find the home of their dreams?
I mean, that's just the impossible question to answer. It really depends. It really depends on the work that we've put in preparing somebody's trip, or it might just be that they view one property and it's a property they fall in love. So it can be, we've got clients that we viewed dozens and dozens of properties, and it's just not quite right. Now that might be because there's a lack of properties on the market at the moment. We have a lot of properties, but we're in a situation where we've got more buyers than properties. So it may be we just don't have the right property for them, or it might just be because it's their first time over. They don't have a very good understanding of what they may be able to find. So it might just be they'll have to adjust their search criteria. But in any case, we will really try and narrow down as much as possible the viewings that they will need to do. But also it's important for clients to view different types of properties at different ends of the spectrum, so that they can really get those priorities out and transmit that to us, and that means that we'll be much more effective in our work.
That's really good advice. Thank you, Eric. That's very helpful. And yes, sorry, I know that was a difficult question, but it's one that we do always get asked. I wanted to understand a little bit about the other services that you might be able to help with. We've had a few queries coming in today about do you have partners who can help customers maybe secure a French mortgage? Do you have recommended surveyors who might take a look at the property? Is that surveying process even something that happens in France? We're obviously very used to it here in the UK, but can you give us any advice on those sorts of other services and how you might be able to help?
Yes, I mean, well, definitely. I mean, we've been going for over a decade, and we've also been working with Smart Currency, which is one of our partners. But we have many other companies that we're used to working with, and so we'd happily refer some clients to a mortgage broker, for example, or insurance companies, or whatever they were looking for. And in terms of surveyors. Now, I'm actually French, even though it doesn't sound like it, but in France, we're really not used to using surveyors. We have what we call diagnostics, which is basically what we would call a survey. Somebody comes around, has a look at the property, mainly for termites, asbestos, looks at the general electrical condition. We also have a survey for the septic tank system, or the mains drains connection. But we do have British clients, as you say, that are very used to the surveying system, and that just cannot see themselves buying a property in France without that, which I can understand. It's totally new for a lot of people. So there are some surveyors that work around this area, and that we'd happily recommend to buyers if that's what they wanted.
That's great. Thank you, Eric. That's really helpful. Now, in terms of the sort of fees and taxes and things like that, can you explain, again, I know it's a difficult question, but can you give an idea of what sort of fees, taxes, we have stamp duty here in the UK, and those kinds of costs that a buyer would have to pay, above and beyond the actual sale price of the property? If you can give an indication on those costs, that would be really helpful for the listeners.
Yes, so those fees are what we call, in jargon, let's say, notary fees. The notary is the equivalent of a solicitor in the UK. However, he doesn't represent one party or the other. He's a representative of the state. And the notary fees, actually, within those fees, most of it is taxed to the government. There is a small percentage, which is around 1.5% of the purchase price, which does go to the notary, but the rest is basically tax. And apart from that, there are no other taxes, apart from obviously the land tax that you will pay on a yearly basis, but that's all.
Great. And that land tax that you pay yearly, can you give any indication of how much that would be, or does it vary region by region or type of property? How does that sort of get calculated?
Well, not only does it vary region by region, but actually town by town. It really depends on the town in which the property is located. Some towns are much more expensive than others, even though they're only 10 kilometers down the road. And that might be because they have better services, and it's a more sought after area. But it also depends on the size of the property, the square meterage, whether or not you have a swimming pool, the amount of land that's sold with the property. So there are a lot of factors. I mean, it can range anywhere from 600 euros to up to 7,000 euros when you've got large properties, maybe with a vineyard and a large surface area. So it really does depend on a lot of factors.
Thanks, Eric. It's helpful to understand at least sort of those factors that a customer might need to consider. So thank you very much for that. Following up on what you were saying there about the diagnostics report, that you can have, a couple of questions have come in from some of the listeners on that. They wanted to understand, is that something that they can see at the point at which they're viewing properties, or is that only something that you would get if you'd actually sort of said, you've offered and you want to buy that property, and it happens at that stage, or is it sort of readily available in the property search process?
Now, that's also a tricky question, because actually legally, a vendor, in order to put their property on the market, the only diagnostic that's compulsory is the energy rating. So that is the A, B, C, D, E scale that we have. Other than that, all the other diagnostic will need to be done in the event of a sale, but they don't have to be done when putting property on market. So it's very possible that we've had a property on the market for a year for one reason or another, and that we've only got the energy rating, and that we will need to do those surveys generally when there is an offer on the table. A lot of vendors are not willing, because obviously this has a cost. Some of them expire, like the termites diagnostic is only valid for 6 months. So some people don't want to pay up front if they're not end up not selling their property within 6 months. But if we do have it, and I generally tend to push a lot of vendors to do these upfront, so that we don't get delayed in the event of an offer. Then we would happily share that information with buyers, and also it will be very reassuring for them to know that there is no termites, no asbestos, and it will give us a better understanding of the property as well.
Thanks, Eric. That's very helpful, and I hope that's answered those customers' queries. One last topic I wanted to discuss with you, Eric, is just a little bit about renovation and redevelopment of properties. How sort of easy is it to do something like that once you've purchased, in terms of kind of the language barrier with different suppliers and builders, planning permission, anything like that you might need? In general, is the renovation process sort of particularly complicated, or is there anything that customers should be particularly aware of if they're going to purchase a property that is going to need work done to it?
Now, it really depends on the scale of the renovation that you're going to undertake. Obviously, for any minor repairs or alteration, then the town planning process is much simpler, although there is always some hoops to jump through. Obviously, in the area, we've got a lot of foreign residents, and so there is also a lot of British builders, a lot of British electricians, for example. So generally speaking, the expat community will pass on the details of someone they know that maybe speaks English. But for those who want to deal with local French tradesmen, then there's also, generally people here, as long as you try and get by, even if you've got 2 or 3 words in French, generally you can be understood, and people are going to appreciate that, and you'll always find some reliable tradesmen with who you can work with here. But then it really depends, as I was saying, on the level of renovation, depending on what permits you're going to have to request. It can get quite tricky when you're in projects that are over 150 square meters, where you have to get an architect to help you draw up some plans to submit to the planning permission in your local town. So again, it really depends. But if you're looking for local tradesmen, whether it be French or English speaking, there are a lot of them around here.
That's very helpful. Thank you so much, Eric. And I hope that answers those queries from those customers about renovations. I would love to carry on chatting for ages. There's lots of questions coming in from the audience about particular circumstances and things, but I am conscious of our time today. So thank you so much, Eric, for that. As with all the panelists today, we will send you an email with all of the speakers' details in, so you will be able to contact them directly and address your specific queries. So thanks so much for your time, Eric. And as I promised, Tracy has been able to join us for the last few minutes. Thank you so much, Tracy, for joining us. Now, Tracy originally hails from the UK, but has lived in France for over 25 years now, and she has experience with the French bureaucracy and the processes, and that is sort of the real reason that she's here today, to share with us that expertise of how she can simplify and demystify some of that process. So thank you so much, Tracy, for joining us. I'd love it if you could start by just giving us some background on LBS, how you work with your clients, and the sort of different services that you can offer them.
Yeah, hi Hannah, and hello everybody. I apologize for being late to the meeting this evening, but I had other obligations. So yes, I've been in France now for over 30 years. I arrived here when the UK was not part of the EU and struggled through all the different paperwork, and I remember thinking it shouldn't be this complicated. So fast forward a few years, and I set up my business LBS Relocation Services, because I decided that when people are moving, living, or creating a business in France, they should be able to have a smoother transition than what I had and that many other people had. I was always hearing the horror stories of how much the paperwork was causing problems. So I set my business up over 10 years ago. We are a team of 3 people, and we help people from A to Z from a paperwork perspective. So from the moment that, and I like to get people before they actually move if possible, but generally speaking, it's about helping people with that smooth transition. So immigration, visas, healthcare, getting their tax online account set up, driving license, car registrations, and basically everything in between, their taxes. And we also now, because of Brexit, we help a lot of people with the logistics of getting over the borders with customs and things like that. So we offer service packages to help people with that smooth transition, and we're very close to our customers. It's a very direct contact with them.
Thanks, Tracy. That's a wonderful overview to start with. Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you've mentioned there the big topic, the post-Brexit, what does this now mean for UK customers in particular? A lot of our customers we know are planning some sort of permanent relocation to France, or they want to spend a lot of time there as a second home. Perhaps they're retirees and they're planning on spending the majority of their time there. So can you talk us through as quickly and easily as you can, but I know we could potentially be here for hours, but can you just explain what the sort of visa and residency options might be, particularly for permanent relocation and for perhaps retirees who are looking to retire to France, what the sort of options for them now are?
Yes, of course. So as you know, because of Brexit, people from the UK and other non-European countries, this is not just about the British, it's about any non-European country, moving to France, if you come across for more than 90 days in every 180, you'll have to request a visa. So for those people who've got secondary homes, it's become a problem. And for those who want to be permanent residents of France, it's also become a problem. So there are options available, especially for retirees and slightly early retirees. If you want to come to France, either because you've got a second home and you want to come and live here permanently, or even if you want to come and spend more than 3 months but not become a permanent resident, there are solutions available to you. The easiest option for retirees, of course, is the long stay visitors visa. And this is a visa which allows you to come to live in France permanently, but not work. So very appropriate for retirees. And there are a lot of my clients who are retirees or younger retirees. If you're retired and receiving retirement pension, of course, then that is perfect. If you're not yet retirement age, but have decided to take an early retirement, then you have to have sufficient financial funds to show that you're not a burden on the French government. So the idea would be you'd apply for a 1-year long stay visitors visa via the French consulate in the UK. You have an appointment, you get all your documents together. So you have to prove who you are, you have to prove your financial situation, where you're going to live, and your healthcare. Those are the 4 key areas that you have any immigration file, to be quite honest. And once you have shown those documents, then you will get your long-term visitors visa, which you then renew in France. It's very important that you apply for a long stay visitors visa, which is a D2, because if you apply for another visa, you'll have to renew it back in your country of origin, the UK. So do reach out if you need support with that. For those clients of yours that have a secondary home but don't want to become a French tax resident, because of course permanent resident means tax residency, then you can just apply for a short-term visa for 6 months, so that you can use to come and go within that 6-month period. And you can also add on, if you like, your 9180, so you can play a little bit with that time. So that could be a solution for those secondary residents who don't want to become a tax resident but want to have a bit more than 3 months in any one given time. I hope that's given you a bit of an overview, but do feel free to ask me more questions.
Thank you, Tracy. That's brilliant. That's a really, really clear overview. And I just wanted to clarify as well, and we talk a lot about the UK because a lot of our customers are based in the UK, but can you support customers, if they're Australian or from the US, things like that? Can you help them as well?
Absolutely. I mean, before Brexit happened, the core business in immigration for us was, of course, Americans, Australians, and a few South Africans. And since Brexit, of course, the UK, the British have been added to that in a big way, because the British people, a lot of the British people come to live in France. So yes, everything I say here, of course, at the moment is maybe directed to the British, but it's absolutely applicable to our American and our New Zealand and Australian customers, which, yes, was the people who were our original, all of the experience we have gained has been through our relocating clients from those non-European countries, for sure.
Brilliant. That's very helpful, Tracy. Thank you so much. And obviously, we talked there about kind of the things that you need to prove in order to secure one of these longer stay visas. So, we've talked about the property side of things with Eric, and hopefully Eric and his team at Beauvillage are going to find a beautiful property for the customers to live in. So we've kind of got the property side of things sorted. But you talked there particularly about finances and about medical, and I'd like to sort of talk about those in a bit more detail. A customer has actually asked, do they need to have private medical cover, or are they able to access any of the state medical cover in France? So if we talk about medical first, and if you can answer that, and then we'll talk about finances in a bit more detail.
Yeah, sure. So from the medical side of things, if you move into France on a long stay visitors visa, or any long stay visa, so even if it was a business visa, you do have to supply private health insurance for 1 year. The reason that's important, there's a couple of reasons. The first one is, of course, you have to prove that you're not a burden on the French healthcare system when you first come into the country. So you take a 1 year private healthcare cover out, and also you use that during that first, very important first 3 to 6 months, because once you have your long stay visitors visa, which is stamped by the immigration office in France, you can then apply to the French Social Security Office, the CPAM, once you've been in France for more than 3 months, and it will take you 3 months anyway to get your visa stamped in France. So once you've been in France for 3 months, you can apply to the local CPAM. However, to be able to do that, you have to have that 1 year private insurance, and it cannot be a travel insurance. It really has to be a healthcare insurance. The only way out of that is if you are a retiree and you have the S1 form, and if you are receiving a UK retirement pension, you should have access to an S1. So I would advise your clients to reach out to get an S1 form. Now, there's a kind of a chicken and egg situation with the S1 is normally the NHS send you the S1 form once you've moved to France. And certainly not a month before you've moved to France, which is when you're doing your visa application. So a little tip from me would be to make sure you get an email confirmation from the Department of Health and Pensions that your S1 form is being sent out, and you can use that as proof that you will be covered by the S1 form and therefore avoid having to pay for a private insurance. That's what we do with our clients anyway. So that is a good way to get away from the private insurance if you have the S1 form. But if you don't have the S1 form, then you would have to have that 1 year private insurance to get into France, and then after 3 months applying to the French healthcare system, which everybody has access to if you can prove you've been living for 3 months more in France. So you'd be able to do that.
That's great. That's really good advice, Tracy. Thank you so much. And actually on that point about private healthcare, we do have a webinar recording that we did a few months back that's available on Your Overseas Home website, which was all about that medical insurance, particularly for that initial 3 to 6 month period. And we've got some fantastic partners that can support you with that as well. So do take a look at the website if you want to find out more about that. Now on to finances, Tracy, and I'm sure you're asked this all the time. In terms of proving you're not going to be a burden on the state because you've got money in the bank, are there any particular thresholds, particular amounts of money that you have to hit? People often struggle to interpret what having enough money to look after yourself actually really means in reality. Can you give any advice on that?
Yes, for sure. It is a difficult one because when you look at all the different forums and information, it's very confusing, and there isn't really one particular website. Even the legal websites don't tell you everything. So it is a confusing one for many people. And when you read the forums, be very careful because it's all based on people's experience, and there isn't one rule fits all. So don't really listen to the forums. But what I can tell you is, if you are receiving a retirement pension, that is proof of income. If you have a property and you don't have a mortgage on, that will be taken to an account. What you do need to have is sufficient funds, which is classed as the minimum earnings in France. So on a ballpark figure, it's 1,000, well, ballpark, it's a very precise figure, 1,269 euros, I think, is the new SMIC earnings, which is the minimum earnings in France. So logic would be applied to that. That is the minimum amount you need to have. So multiply that by 12, and that is your minimum amount of earnings. But I do tell my clients, I advise them to have a minimum of about 20 to 25,000 euros in their savings or bank accounts, because you don't want to be on the edge. It's about 15,000 euros. So you don't really want to be on the edge of that 15,000 euros. So I would up it to 20,000 if you're an individual person. And if you're a couple, I would say 25,000 minimum to have in your bank account. And of course, if you already have a retirement pension coming in, you wouldn't need to have as much savings as that. So if you've got a retirement pension, coming in, it's already coming in at 1,200, then you don't have to have also plus 25,000 euros in your bank account. That's more for people who have less income coming in. So that's what I would advise. And, if you go for the exact number, it's 1,269, give away a few euros here and there per month. So multiply that by 12 and add a bit on.
That's great. Thank you, Tracy. I'm conscious of our time today. We could chat, I'm sure, on this subject for a really long time. There's loads of questions coming in. So just to reiterate, I will share Tracy's details with you via email so you can ask all of your specific questions. I think one sort of key thing that I just wanted to reconfirm with you and get a sort of the best answer we can is how long typically would that visa process take? So, you know, you found the property, you want to be heading out to France, you want to have that sort of longer stay visa. How long would that, particularly that D2 that you mentioned, how long would the application process for that typically take?
So COVID apart, because of course that changes things every day, COVID apart, you kind of want to be applying for your visa online at least 2 to 3 months beforehand. No more than 3 months, because there's no point, but I would say at least 2 months before you want to come to France. So bear in mind as well, when you do your visa application, you don't necessarily have to have your dream home already. You can put down a temporary address, a hotel, or a rental apartment as your address while you're looking to buy your dream home. So don't be too worried if you don't have a fixed address. Just have an address in France on there, and that can be changed at your consulate visit if you've already found your real home when you go to your visit. So yes, I would count 2 months. I would say it takes a couple of weeks to do the application once you have all the documents that you need. Then you make the appointment, then you go to the appointment, and then another 2 to 3 weeks to get your visa to come through, depending on the backlog due to COVID, as a bit of a caveat, because we have that backlog. So 2 months would be a good answer. If it's a business visa, if your clients are applying for a business visa, you need to double that. It needs to be at least 4 to 5 months.
Great. Thank you, Tracy. That was really helpful. I know that was such a quick whistle stop there. There's so much we can discuss on this topic, but it's a really great starting point. So thank you for that. I'm sorry that we have lost cameras. I don't know what's happening with internet connections today. So sorry you can't see everyone's faces, but thank you very much to all of our panelists for sharing their expertise today. We will send you an email with all the contact information, and do get in touch with them directly to discuss your personal circumstances. Thank you to all of the listeners who joined us today. We're thrilled to have you with us, and we're really excited to be able to support you in your journey to own a home in France. So thank you very much for joining us. Last thing to say is we'll pop a link on the screen now. That takes you to the Your Overseas Home website. You can view any upcoming sessions that we've got. We've got loads planned in the diary over the next few months. So do register for anything else that may be of interest. And you can also look at the on-demand section on the website there. As I mentioned, we've got some sessions with all of the presenters actually from today, and with some of our other partners that look at some of these topics in a little bit more detail. And we've got a healthcare session as well, as I know that was a question that came up quite a lot today. So thank you all for joining us, and we wish you the very best of luck in purchasing your home in France. Thanks everyone. Good evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.